The fantasy background was very important because in fantasy, there's this idea that if you know the name of a demon, you can summon them, you can control them. Names are very powerful. And when the internet hit, I was typing out Saylor at microstrategy.com in my email. And I thought, well, it'd be a lot better if I just typed out Saylor at strategy.com. And I started thinking about domains, and it inspired me to go and buy up all the domains I could. So I bought Hope. How would you like to own Hope? Like, the nice thing about owning Hope
that was when? What year was that?
Between 94 and 98.
Right, so pretty early.
Pretty early on. And so I thought...
How many domain names do you think you bought?
I bought a bunch, but I bought about 30 of the classics. My idea was the most valuable thing is a constructive word in the English language that has a positive connotation that everyone understands, everybody can spell. So I bought Emma. Yeah. I bought Michael, Michael.com. I bought Mike.com. I bought Hope. I bought Voice. I bought Angel. I bought Alarm. I bought Speaker.
How did you pick the words? I mean, you laid out some of the criteria.
I bought every good word that I could buy. It was a digital real estate gold rush.
Right.
If you would sell it to me, I would buy it. I figured, what did I think? I think if 1 billion people learn to speak English, I'll give you an example. 1 billion people learn to speak English. How many of them know how to spell strategy? How many of them have a positive impression of strategy? Now, Now I name my company MicroStrategy. Let me tell you, for 30 years, half our customers mispronounced it, microstrategies. Like, when you pick a word that's not in the English language, if you teach it to 3rd graders or 6th graders, the education system is burning the word. What does hope mean to you, right? That's different than naming a company Celebrelix. Celebrelix is not a word we can spell, and it's not a word that has a meaning, but hope, Angel.
It's a pretty strange opportunity to be able to buy words, which is essentially what happened. Right?
And it happened in the internet era.
Yeah, right.
Now, if we go to mobile, my fascination was this idea that if software goes from the back office to the desk to my pocket, it goes from solid state to liquid state to vapor state. It's all around me. What happens when I can talk to it? What happens when it can talk back to me? Well, now you have to have an imagination. Science fiction, it's valuable because it says if you learn science and engineering, you can figure out like what's the optimal way to get to Mars from the U.S. You start to understand gravity wells. You start to understand physics. That's very important for one part of the story. But the other part of the story is fantasy. I'm creating something in cyberspace. I'm an engineer, and I can imagine throwing a baseball in orbit. And if I throw it fast enough, it stays in orbit. And if I throw it harder, it breaks Earth's gravity field and orbits the sun. And if I throw it harder, it breaks the sun's gravitational field and it spins off into, Milky Way. Well, that's what science fiction or engineering teaches you. Fantasy teaches you I can throw the baseball and will it to be a flock of seagulls that land on my head and turn into a pot of gold because
so
those
those are little paradigm revolutions in that fantasy.
Because they're frame breaking. The significance is in the hardware world, you're subject to thermodynamics and physics, and you better know it. But in cyberspace, you're not subject to thermodynamics and physics. So you could imagine, I look at mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all, right? And Snow White gave you the answer, right? Because, when that happens in a fairy tale, the mirror talks back to you, it comes to life, and eventually we got to, Zoom and video. And pretty soon your iPad became a magic mirror, and pretty soon you could talk to, a relative of yours 8,000 miles away, and that was pretty magical. But then when you put the AI behind it, and the AI generates an AI image, you're not talking to a person, you're talking to an angel or a demon, right? And so now, if you want to design that stuff, if you want to design magic software.
Why those words?
An angel or a demon?
Yeah. Yeah, because you see, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today was the use of imagery, your use of imagery in your tweets and your marketing for Bitcoin, because like you have a strange mind in many ways, because you have your engineering background and you think that way, but you also have a foot in the world of fantasy. And there's lots of engineers that are sort of possessed by the world of fantasy. You know, they live in a Star Wars ethos, right? And many of them had their philosophy shaped by the science fiction that they read when they were in their early adolescence. And that really produced the religious and fantasy substrate of their thought. But there's not a lot of examination of that. But you thought about fantasy, by all appearances, in a lot more detail than that.
As a spouse, a parent, or a leader, people count on you. But if you're constantly tired, unfocused, and just not feeling like yourself, how can you show up the way they need you to? That's where Merrick Health comes in. Merrick is a premier health optimization platform that uses comprehensive lab work, not guesswork, to uncover what's really going on in your body. Hormones, thyroid inflammation, nutrient levels, the markers that matter. Their expert clinical teams build a personalized, research-backed plan just for you, whether it's lifestyle changes, supplements, or prescription treatments. When you know what's going on inside, you can lead with clarity, show up with energy, and stay sharp for your family, your team, and yourself. Head over to merrickhealth.com and use code Peterson for 10% off to join their guided optimization program with your personal medical team. That's merrickhealth.com, code Peterson. Stop guessing, start leading, and start with Merrick Health.
Yeah, well, when I was at MIT, I was surrounded by some of the most brilliant mathematicians and engineers in the world. But what distinguished me is I was a pretty good engineer. Like, I probably wasn't like a Fields Medal mathematician, right? I wasn't like that, but I was a good engineer. But I had a liberal arts bent, and the truth is, if I could have afforded it, I would have gone to Yale and studied history as an undergraduate. I just didn't have any money. And they didn't have an ROTC program, and the government wasn't paying Air Force cadets to go study history at Yale. So my love was history. History, science fiction, imagining the future, fantasy, imagining an alternative future.
Would you say you think in pictures or words?
Images.
You think in images?
I'm a synthesist, so I generally, I'm the person that would tell you why the steam engine, and the governor of a steam engine is similar to a political process that was implemented in medieval Russia. Like I'm thinking about the mechanisms and how they function in the physical world, the political world, the economic world, the fantasy world, the magic world, the whatever world. So I would always be thinking simultaneously across that. So when I went to MIT, most of them were there to do engineering. I was actually half liberal artist, half engineer, and that was what was different about me. And of course, when I came out of MIT, I didn't want to work for someone else doing something they told me to do. I wanted to create something, and I think that when you're
that entrepreneurial bent probably goes along, at least to some degree, with that proclivity to appreciate fantasy, because, well, entrepreneurial activity is associated with trait openness, which is the creativity dimension. And so it makes sense that you would have that entrepreneurial bent combined, because you have to imagine possibility to be an entrepreneur, right? So that's the fantastic element. You have to conjure up something that doesn't yet exist, and then you have to pursue it, and it has to captivate you. So you have to have the temperament for that. So you've got, do you still read fiction?
I do, not as much as I used to. In my current stage in life, I spend a lot more time reading history, like cover to cover Durant's Story of Civilization, every volume, all 15,000 pages, or all the history of America, conceived in liberty, Rothbard's History of America Before the Revolutionary War, or History of Economic Thought. So a lot of history, a lot of biography, a lot of monetary theory, and of course today, I spend my time reading legislation and all of the developments in the political economic world relevant to digital assets, digital technology, because there's a flood of it, and I'm expected to have an opinion on it. But when I can sneak away, I'll go read history.
Artistic interests?
Landscape architecture, residential architect. When I first came here, I went to Taliesin West. Frank Lloyd Wright's architecture, all architecture everywhere in the world.
Right. Well, that's a good blending of aesthetic and engineering as well. So
very much.
Yeah.
But to address two of your points that are important. One, in fantasy, there's this idea of casting a spell, right? So if you can imagine it, you can cast it. That's a very interesting idea. Can you make the world a better place? Can you shape it in a certain way? The second point you brought up about metaphor, right? Imagery.
Yeah, that was in relationship to the angels and the demons.
You know, if you write a book about something, write a book about Bitcoin and it's 200 pages long. I wrote the book about something. What I discovered is 1% of the people will read the book in 5 years. Maybe 0.1%. It's very, and when they read the book, if you wanted to explain something in 200 pages or 500 pages, they might have forgotten what they read on the first 50 pages by the time they get to the end. And so a 200-page explanation isn't nearly as powerful as to say, oh, that's a demon coming out of cyberspace.
Right. Well, that's the power of poetry.
Because it's like, oh, what is that? That's an actor in cyberspace with hostile intent that I should be afraid of. And so there's a lot of over-explaining in the world. And what I've discovered is in the modern world, we live in an age of abundance and there is so much infinite information. I watched your podcast on YouTube. I came to know you before COVID and I was fascinated by them. But then I stumbled across chess videos. And then I found you could spend your entire waking day watching chess videos. And then I realized you could spend your entire life watching Magnus Carlsen chess videos. And then I realized you could probably spend an entire day watching different chess commentators covering one Magnus Carlsen game from 30 different points of view. And if you want to go down that rabbit hole, whether it's, diets, the carnivore diet, or chess, or pocket knives, or someone sailing around the world, there is literally infinite
depth
content.
Yeah.
And then comes along Netscape and YouTube, and all these other streaming. And then, Lord help you, you fall into a TikTok hole, and you're like, you start swiping, and then YouTube decided to steal it. And they have these shorts. And when you pull up the YouTube short, the algorithm is thinking, what is the statistically most likely thing to capture your attention and punch your buttons and hit your dopamine? And you find yourself going,
yeah, is that an angel or a demon, that algorithm? Yeah.
And you are stuck, and it's an addiction if you're not careful. And of course,
well, it's optimized to grip short-term attention, and there's something really distressing
scary
about that, because the more immature a mind is, the more it's gripped by short-term attention. And these bloody algorithms maximize for short-term attention, and the attention fragments are getting shorter as the content gets shorter. And so we're literally training super intelligent AI systems to hook us in keeping with our hedonistic drive. So that's a demon, I would say. And it's
not a fair fight. It's not a fair fight. It's a 16-year-old boy against the smartest, AI in the world, trying to addict the boy to the imagery they feed, right? And so
the smartest engineers and the smartest AI systems that are actually operating in ways that we don't even understand because they're reinforced. They learn by reinforcement. But so they understand things about us that we don't understand, they understand.
Coming back to my communication style, then, what I realize is people just don't have the time. Like, you can, for example, in life, you can equivocate. You could say, well, you might do this and you might do that and do your own research. And if you think blah, 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 then this might happen, and read these 82 pages.
Yeah.
Or you can say, this is digital gold, but it's going to crush real gold by a factor of 10.
Okay, so let's...